So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News and Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time within 30 minutes so that your current affairs get covered on a daily basis and in a short span of time so that you have enough time for covering other parts of UPSC syllabus as well. Okay, so the idea behind this lecture series is to cover your current affairs quickly. Now, just after watching this lecture, you need to revise this lecture as well. I couldn't emphasize on revision anymore. Revision is very important because it really helps you to consolidate these current affairs in your memory for longer periods of time. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, revision will take another 20 minutes, not more than that, and you can revise these current affairs from our notes. These notes are shared on our Telegram platform, and the link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below this video. So make sure you click on that link, subscribe to our Telegram channel from where you can download the notes for all the lectures posted on our YouTube channel. All right, enough of the introduction. Let's straight away jump into the discussion. But first, let's take a look at the topics we are going to discuss in today's lecture. Okay, so in totality, we'll be covering 4 topics in today's lecture because these are the only 4 topics that were important from the perspective of civil services examination. Number 1 topic is Good Governance Index 2023. Now, December of 2024, government was scheduled to release this index and this report of 2023, Good Governance Index report. But the government has postponed it to 2025 now. So on 25th December, round about 25th December 2024, government was to release this report, but now government has postponed it. So what becomes important for us to know is what is this Good Governance Index? So we'll talk about this. Then recently, RBI came out with this report about the banking system. And this report is related to macro stress test conducted by RBI on India's banking system. These stress tests are very important to know the vulnerabilities of Indian banking system. So we'll talk about what these stress tests are and what are their results. Then recently, and now not recently, for the past many months, norovirus is wreaking havoc in USA. Now, norovirus infection has happened in India as well, especially in the state of Kerala. So, what is this norovirus infection? Why is it dangerous? And what happens if you do not treat it well? So, we'll talk about this. And in the end, we'll talk about a scientific project being undertaken in Mediterranean Sea, deep inside Mediterranean Sea, to detect ghost particles, that is neutrinos. Neutrinos are also known as ghost particles. So there are 2 telescopes being placed underwater in Mediterranean Sea to detect high speed neutrinos. So what are neutrinos? What are these telescopes? We'll talk about all of that. Okay, so in total we'll be focusing on all these 4 items. Let's start our discussion with topic number 1, which is Good Governance Index. So Good Governance Index 2023. So what was in the news? Why Good Governance Index was in the news? So Center has decided not to release Good Governance Index, the biennial ranking of states and union territories. Thing is that every 2 years, biennially, central government releases Good Governance Index. Okay. Now this Good Governance Index has many indicators and different states and UTs are assessed on the basis of these indicators. A score is given to them and then they are ranked. Okay, rankings are released. So basically these rankings tell us how states are performing as far as good governance is concerned. Okay, so these indicators actually measure the level of good governance. So if a state is performing very well on governance related issues, then their rank and score would be higher. Okay, their rank would be lower, basically 1, 2, 3, and their score would be higher. So basically it is a ranking that ranks different states and UTs on the basis of good governance. Now the 2023 report was scheduled to be released during the Good Governance Week, which is between December 19 and December 25. Okay, so you have to remember this. India celebrates Good Governance Week between 19th to 25th December, and in fact 25th December is celebrated as Good Governance Day. Okay, 25th of December is also the birth anniversary of former Prime Minister of India, Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And on his birth anniversary, Good Governance Day is celebrated. Okay. Now, about this Good Governance Index. So it was launched on 25th December 2019, the birth anniversary of late Prime Minister Bihari Vajpayee, which is observed as Good Governance Day. So in 2019, on Good Governance Day, this index was launched. This index basically covers more than 50 indicators. So it has more than 50 indicators on the basis of which different states and UTs are judged or given a score on. Okay. Now, these 50 indicators span across sectors. These 50 indicators include the agricultural sector, economic governance sector, public health sector, citizen-centric governance sector, everything. Okay. As you can see, there are these sectors on which these indicators are based. Okay. Human resource development, public infrastructure, public health, economic governance, judiciary, everything. Now, the last report that is with us was the 2021 index, because as you all know, this index is released every 2 years. And the 2023 index was scheduled to be released in 2024, but it is being postponed. Okay, so the last index that we have, so till now we have two indices, two reports, Good Governance Index, the 2019 and 2021. So the 2021 index, which was released on December 25th, 2021, covered 58 indicators across 10 sectors. These are those 10 sectors. And Gujarat and Tamil Nadu have been topping the charts. They have been ranked the highest, the best. They have been ranked the best for the past two good governance indices. Okay, so Tamil Nadu and Gujarat were ranked 1 and 2 in 2019. They were ranked 1 and 2 in 2021 as well. Okay, so this is all you need to know about Good Governance Index. Okay, that's all. Now let's shift our focus to second news item, which is macro stress test for banks. Okay, so these macro stress tests are conducted by RBI for the banking sector as a whole. Okay, now first let's talk about what the recent macro stress tests have revealed, and then we'll talk about what macro stress tests are. Okay, so the gross NPA ratio of scheduled commercial banks, which declined to a 12-year low of 2.6% in September 2024, and we have discussed this, that NPA ratio of banks have declined significantly. Now, these stress tests have revealed that this ratio might rise to 3% in March 2026. So this is not good news. Okay, 1 year from today, NPAs are going to rise. This is what is being predicted by RBI's stress tests. Okay, this estimate is based on macro stress formed to assess the resilience of banks' balance sheet to unforeseen shocks emanating from macroeconomic environment. Okay, now the thing is that these macro stress tests have predicted that India's NPAs, though are very low, are set to rise in future. Now, what are macro stress tests? Okay, look, macro stress tests are basically like the horoscope of banking sector in India. Okay. Now, what does a horoscope do? It makes future predictions, right? A horoscope makes future predictions. So these stress tests also make future predictions. Okay. Now, these stress tests actually assess all the macroeconomic variables of Indian economy like GDP, inflation, and everything. And based on these macroeconomic variables, they try to check that what is the direction in which these macroeconomic variables are headed and how would they impact Indian banking sector. So if these macroeconomic variables like GDP, inflation, and other things, if they are increasing, then what impact would it have on India's banking sector? If they are decreasing, what impact they would have on India's banking sector? So basically, they are trying to make future predictions for the health of banking sector in India. So how does it function? Okay, so macro stress tests for credit risk involves three major steps. Okay, first RBI checks. It develops a model to capture the interrelationship between selected macroeconomic and financial variables. Okay, so the first step is that RBI checks that what relationship is between GDP, inflation, CPI, and other macroeconomic variables. What is the relationship between these macroeconomic variables and the financial indicators of banks, financials of banks? So basically, they'll check what is the relationship between GDP and inflation and NPA of a bank, right? So basically, the first step is to check the relationship between macroeconomic variables of Indian economy and the financial indicators of banking sector. So first, the relationship is established. Then, second, the calibration of parameter vectors linking macroeconomic and financial variables to specific measures of loan performance. So basically, again, the second step is to quantify the relationship. Okay. So quantification means that if GDP rises by 2%, NPAs decline by 1%. Okay. So this is the basic quantification part. So they quantify also. Okay. So they basically check the causal relationship between the two. Then the third part is that RBI checks for whether in future GDP, CPI, and other macroeconomic variables, how would they perform? So 1 year down the line, how would GDP perform? How would CPI perform? How would all these things perform? And then what will be their impact on NPA? Okay, so basically it's a future prediction of sorts. Okay, now they develop all sorts of scenarios. In case of optimistic scenario that GDP will rise and inflation will decline, what would be the situation of NPA and other financial indicators in banks? In case GDP declines, bad scenario, okay, would be the situation. Okay, so this is the thing. Macro stress tests are performed to assess the resilience of banks' balance sheets to unforeseen shocks emanating from macroeconomic environment. Now, it is said that if things are as usual, GDP is growing or inflation will stay as it is, if GDP grows as it is growing right now in the future, then banks' NPAs would rise to 3%. But if situation becomes bad, then it might even rise to 5% or 5.3%. Okay. Scenario one, scenario two. So these are the adverse scenarios. So RBI basically checks that if things do not go as planned, if things go bad, then what would happen to NPAs? Okay. Baseline scenario is if things go as usual. All right. Now, one more thing that was predicted, and that was good news basically. One good news that was predicted through macro stress test was that no, in any situation, whether adverse or good situation, would fall short of the minimum capital requirement of 9%. Okay, so banks won't be short of capital, even if bad things come in the future. All right, so this is what you need to know about stress tests. Okay, now we'll move on to our third news item, which is norovirus infection. Okay, why was it in the news? The stomach infection norovirus is causing alarm in the United States, with the first week of December seeing more than 90 cases recorded. Now, it's not just a problem in US. This infection has caused problems in India as well, especially in the state of Kerala. But but the havoc or the problems caused by this infection in India was much smaller than the problems it is causing in USA. Okay. Now, what is norovirus? So, norovirus is a virus that causes stomach inflammation. The technical name for it is gastroenteritis. Okay, it is also known by the name of norovirus virus or winter vomiting disease. So, it causes stomach infection. Now, how does it transmit? It can be transmitted through contaminated food, water, and surfaces, and the primary route is oral fecal route. So if you do not wash hands after going to the toilet or you come in contact with contaminated food, this virus is going to be transmitted. Now, what are the symptoms? Well, abdominal pain, fever, headache, body ache, vomiting, and diarrhea are the most common symptoms. Vomiting and diarrhea. Okay. Now, vomiting and diarrhea and fever lead to dehydration. That is why patients suffering from this disease, and if they have severe symptoms, they are given rehydration fluids. Okay. Now, what is the treatment? Well, till now, no vaccine has been developed for this disease. And if you are suffering from this disease, okay, then The only thing you can do is wait for this virus to go on its own. The only thing you do is reduce the symptoms. So if you are having a fever, you take paracetamol. Okay, if you are having vomiting or diarrhea, you are given remedies for dehydration. So only symptom management is the only treatment available, and in a few days time this virus goes away. All right, but you cannot allow it to develop further in your body, and you cannot allow the symptoms to go more severe. That's the only thing, yeah, that you can do. Okay, some more information about norovirus. So one may get infected multiple times as the virus has different strains. So the thing is that once you're infected by a virus, you develop natural immunity. You've heard about this, right? That you're not affected by the same virus again because you have developed natural immunity to that virus. That's not the case with norovirus, because norovirus has different strains available. So you might have developed natural immunity against one strain of norovirus, but you can be affected by another strain of norovirus. Plus, this norovirus mutates very quickly. Okay. Norovirus is also resistant to many disinfectants. So hand sanitizers don't work. Plus, if your food is contaminated, even if you heat the food up to 60 degrees Celsius, that also won't work because this virus can survive that. Therefore, merely steaming the food or chlorinating water does not kill the virus. The disease is self-limiting and lasts only 2 or 3 days. But according to WHO, people who are malnourished or have comorbidities, okay, other diseases, are more vulnerable to this disease. Okay. Now, how do you check for norovirus? Suppose you are suffering from diarrhea and vomiting, and you want to check whether you have normal stomach infection, bacterial stomach infection, or you have norovirus. So a test is conducted. That test is reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction. You must have heard this name, RT-PCR. This test was conducted for COVID as well, right? So a similar test is conducted for norovirus as well, right? That's And last news item is related to telescopes to detect ghost particles. So what is in the news? Scientists are deploying 2 telescopes to detect high energy neutrinos, known as ghost particles, under the Mediterranean Sea. Now these 2 telescopes are part of Cubic Kilometer Neutrino Telescope, or KM3 net. Okay, so this is the name of the scientific project. Now one of these telescopes will study high energy neutrinos and the other will study low energy atmospheric neutrinos. Now, it's not that this is the first telescope to detect neutrinos. Basically, in 2011, another telescope was placed in Antarctica, known as Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory. Now, the purpose of this 2011 observatory was also similar. It was to observe high energy neutrinos. But it was placed not underwater, it was placed in frozen ice in Antarctic rather than underwater. Okay. So already steps have been taken to observe neutrinos starting from 2011. This is just a latest addition to that step, and these telescopes shall be placed deep underwater inside the Mediterranean Sea. Now, the question that arises is, what are neutrinos? Right? So, what are neutrinos? So, you must have heard about subatomic particles, right? Proton, electron, um, neutron, right? But there are other particles also which make up protons, which make up neutrons. Okay, protons are also made up of some smaller subatomic particles. Neutrons are also made up of some smaller subatomic particles. Muons, quarks, there are many subatomic particles. We need not get into that. But protons and neutrons are also made up of many other subatomic particles. One such subatomic particle is neutrino. Neutrinos are similar to electrons, okay? But electrons have a negative charge. Neutrinos have no charge, neither positive nor negative. Hence, they are called neutrinos, comes from the word neutral. Okay, they're very tiny particles, they have very little mass, and they have no charge, and they make minimal interactions with the surrounding world. They are inert to the surrounding world, like light interacts with the surrounding world. Okay, if a transparent material is there, light will pass through it. If a translucent material is there, light will get distracted. If an opaque material is there, light would get blocked, right? So electrons are also, because they have a charge, they interact. But neutrinos are completely inert. They pass through everything, and they are not blocked by anything. They do not interact with anything. So they are tiny particles, very similar to electrons, but without any electric charge. It is said that inside our universe, neutrinos are the second most abundant subatomic particles. The most abundant subatomic particle in the universe is photons. Light is made up of photons, right? The second most abundant are neutrinos. Now, they were detected for the first time in 1959 because they do not interact with anything. That is why it is very difficult to detect them also. So, they were detected in 1959, but they were predicted by some physicists way back in 1931. Now, the reason why we are interested in neutrinos is that because neutrinos pass through everything, they're not blocked by anything. There are some neutrinos that were released during the Big Bang, during the formation of our Milky Way, during the collision of two big black holes far away in universe. Okay, now light from these events like Big Bang, black hole collision, or any other big supernova event, light from these universal events, universe related events, galactic events, cannot reach us because light gets blocked. But neutrinos can reach us, right? That is why studying these neutrinos is very important, because we can capture neutrinos that were released during the Big Bang also, because neutrinos just pass through everything. Okay, that is why scientists are interested in studying neutrinos. Okay, scientists are interested in examining super fast high energy neutrinos that have come far away in universe. Such neutrinos are rare and mostly originate from exotic events like supernova, a star explodes, gamma ray bursts, colliding stars. Studying high energy neutrinos can help astrophysicists investigate those space mechanisms and regions like center of our Milky Way. Now, light cannot come from center of our Milky Way because it will get blocked. Neutrinos can. So we can observe these faraway places in universe through neutrinos. Okay. Plus, neutrinos can also help us understand dark energy and dark matter. Now, what is dark energy? What is dark matter? We'll discuss this some other time. But today we are talking about significance of neutrinos. Now, another question that arises in everybody's mind is that why can't we place these neutrino telescopes on land? Why are we placing them deep inside the sea, or why are we placing them inside the frozen ice? Why can't we just place them like normal telescopes on land? Well, there is a specific reason for it. To detect high energy neutrinos, there is a need for a large volume of optically transparent material like water or ice in a place where it is extremely dark. So you cannot detect neutrinos if you have light all around you. You can only detect them in dark environments. Okay, and that is why frozen ice inside Antarctic or deep inside Mediterranean Sea is the suitable environment for placing these telescopes, because the environment is dark near the seabed, plus the material is also transparent. Water is transparent, ice is transparent. Okay, the location needs to be dark because detectors look for flashes of Cherenkov radiation. Okay, now Cherenkov radiation is an electromagnetic radiation emitted by neutrinos. So you need dark environment to detect this radiation, Cherenkov radiation. Okay, now neutrinos produce this radiation, but if you are in a light filled environment, you won't be able to detect this radiation. That is why you need a dark place, and that is why these telescopes are being placed deep inside Mediterranean Sea. Okay, and that's about it. And with that, we conclude today's session. Please do not forget to revise this lecture, because revision, like I've said before, is very important for retaining these current affairs in your memory. So please do not forget to revise them. Revise them from our notes. The notes are available on our Telegram channel, and the link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below. Right. On that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much, everyone.